I'd like to share my theory for aura stalking. Basically, people watching your spine, your aura. I'd like to share my theory for MK Ultra aliens in the attic. Basically, do they have to get close to do this? I'm just saying things nobody else is saying, just so we can get out of here. There's about 100 million people complaining of mind control daily. This is a real phenomenon, and we need to jailbreak out of here. Most people think it's EMF. They've meter tested and they're getting EMF signals. This is one theory on how EMF is done. People are made of cells. The nucleus of a cell is a little orange ball of nuclear fusion, kind of like the sun. So this reptile has a cell on his head, and he's grown his star or planet to a very large size. And stars and planets are nuclear and electromagnetic and can create electricity, so it makes you wonder how EMF is done. Everyone's connected to the ionosphere. You can watch my previous video on ion weapons for that and some good shielding advice. So here's something nobody noticed. If there's creepers on the property or in the woods, or even floating in a ship somewhere, and there's 5 of them, each of them watches a 75-degree angle, it forms a pentagram, and they see everything in the middle, even someone's aura, even what you're thinking, what you're feeling. Interestingly enough, this is from a study of human emotional responses recorded via thermal vision. When you give off an emotion, you produce a heat signature that can be read and distinguished. Multiple species of frog and snake see thermally at night. If you ever see a white orb or a red orb floating at night in the woods, get out of there, because that's an eyeball. It's a lizard or something sees thermally at night. Those little tiny slits open up real big at night. I got this idea from the movie Aliens in the Attic, and that old movie People Under the Stairs. There's actually some proof of this. There was also a horror game that came out, Crawl Space. There's some proof of this. There's these 3 pictures from 2 people complaining about their haunted house just this week alone. And this picture from Australia, a guy complaining about the mountain behind his house is haunted. So you can see this creeper, he looks like, semi-invisible. And I did some more research, and there's at least 20 cloak videos of creatures that can sort of stealth and invisible, so there's there's more proof to that. And the army has been investigating cloak technology for years. There's a video of it, and Elisa Lam tweeted about cloak technology before she was killed. You should really investigate this case from California. It's called the Jackie Haunting, California. This guy was up in the attic for chasing a poltergeist, and something grabbed him and tied him to the rafters with this cord, and strangled him, choked him out. So he came down, and there's all these marks on his neck and everything. So I can also investigate this case that just came out of California. This guy was a TI, and he was complaining about police, and the police were using thermal vision on his house. It makes you wonder why, right? Maybe there's attic critters or something. Anyway, a couple days later, he was stabbed to death in his house, and I really wonder if the thing crawled out of his attic and stabbed him and disappeared. There's a couple cases like that, and there's an old German case where a whole family was found butchered, and months later they found the murder weapon, a big hammer, up in the attic, and never solved. Always on the edges of like the swampland, like where I live, the edge of the fucking green belt. I would definitely get a thermal camera and clear your property. Just make sure there's no property creeps on your property in your attic. So as a bonus with the IR camera, you can detect sort of infrared beams and infrared mind control. Watch out for beams from the window. One TI said he saw infrared beams from the window once he got his IR gear. It's been a 1,000-year-old story here, hauntings, haunted mansions, haunted attics, haunted basements. 100,000 kids upload videos every month about the creature in the basement, And kids are naturally more psychic than adults, so maybe they know something that we don't. So you can get an IR camera, and costs about 150 bucks for a clip-on for your phone, or you can get a $15 IR camera for a Raspberry Pi, but you might have to program it yourself, or I don't know if it's great for our what we need. But the good news is you can find a normal camera and YouTube remove IR filter, and there's tutorials for how to scrape the IR filter off a camera and convert it to a thermal camera for only like $5. Clear your property. If you run into any creatures, just be like, oh hi, how are you, this is so cool, we're all safe here, this is so cool, blah blah blah, how are you. Don't act threatening to it. It's before theorizing the government is spending trillions to harass us. Definitely clear your property with thermal gear, or at least night vision if you don't believe the cloak videos are real, but there's 20 of them. I have 20 of them on my subreddit Reptilian Data. This is 2 pictures from people from the paranormal board. Had creeps hanging outside their window with bright glowing white eyes, It's more common than people want to admit. Even if you have shielding, how thin is the floor and the ceiling? It's only 1/4 inch, plasterboard. Make sure your bed isn't by the window. Put Mylar over the window, and don't sleep under the window. These things' method of survival is primarily hiding. And the second technique they use to stay alive is what we call MK Ultra, Gangstalking. They control everyone and make sure that, they stay safe and will screw all of us, right? Hiding past the front lines of the Coast Guard and the National Guard is actually a military strategy called infiltration. So infiltration can be used as a defensive strategy or an offensive strategy. As an offense, being past the front lines, a surprise attack is almost impossible to defend. And as a retaliatory strategy, if all the men left to Africa or Antarctica to fight spaceships or something, to fight UFOs, the women and the kids would be left in USA where there's infiltration and the enemy is already past the front lines, and the soldiers would already have left, so it'd be almost impossible to defend. So in the 70s, people were talking about big-headed monsters in the woods abducting people, and the media spun that into big-headed greys, but it was really cone heads. There's proof of pointed head skulls being found in Malta and South America, and it's basically the rake monster. There's no greys.